Hey everybody, welcome to the Mike and JD Show YouTube channel. Thank you for being here. I want you to do me a big favor before you check out this clip. I want you to hit the like button. I want you to throw in a comment and make sure you're a subscriber to this channel. And then I want you to share this video with your friends. Help us defeat the algorithm. And then if you like this content and you appreciate this content, please head over to patreon.com/, the Mike and JD Show and support the show. That is how we actually get funded to be able to do this. So we thank you very much for being here. And now enjoy the clip.
uh, uh, Competition starting to get thick. It's the click, so I hope you watch your A game. Ain't made no way.
We got a ton to talk about. Should we eat shit right away?
Let's eat shit right away.
That's kind of what we do here. We typically we take big risks with some of the stories that are out there.
We swing.
And we swing for the fences, and we typically eat shit. I'm gonna eat shit, but there's gonna be a little bit of a caveat here. Okay, I didn't report a single goddamn thing because I am not a reporter. I just talked about what was out there. So you feel free to attack me on this, but I stated this last week on Overtime that I am not a reporter. This is just kind of stuff that's out there. So we'll go ahead and get into it. So essentially on Overtime, and we reported. We talked about this before Meltzer reported it and before Sean Ross Sapp and all these other guys, that WWE and CM Punk were in fact in talks at one point in time. And
So-
it was looking like he might be going there.
Yeah, man. We didn't hear in talk. The words that we heard were verbally agreed to terms.
Yes. Like they had a plan in place, they had a date in mind. Like it wasn't a done deal, clearly, because they still had some more hoops to go through. But some of the decision makers, not the top ones, obviously, and CM Punk were pretty much all on the same page at one point in time last week.
At least that's what we heard.
That's what we heard, yeah. And Dave Meltzer talked about it, that Punk was wanting to go back to WWE, that there must have been at some point some consideration that was the case, because he talked about it in the Observer. Other sites had picked up on it too. We were, obviously enough people out, because we didn't talk to anybody from the Observer about this. We had they told us nothing about this. So we kind of heard similar stuff at the same time. And then we get into the weekend, and we're still getting more teases on WWE. WWE has been teasing CM Punk stuff for the last couple of weeks, specifically with Seth Rollins and some of the stuff he was saying. Corey Graves made a kind of an offhand remark, quoting an old CM Punk promo from Ring of Honor. And then we get to Monday,
Quoting a
Go ahead.
promo that was quoting a movie for
Yes.
1995, but continue.
Yes, and then we get to Monday, and on Raw, Shinsuke Nakamura hits the GTS, and I'm like, okay, we're home, baby. This dude is going back to WWE. We're gonna have something interesting to talk about. Well, we're on the home stretch, and then we get up on Tuesday, and Sean Ross Sapp puts out a report that stating that WWE contacted him and said they are not going to be bringing in CM Punk. CM Punk's not coming in. Nick Hausman backed it up. Dave Meltzer backed it up. Everywhere's backing it up. So it looks like they were negotiating at one point in time. And at one point in time, it looked pretty promising. And then at some point, the whole thing just fell through. I have a theory on that, but I'm going to let you go first. The whole thing fell through. CM Punk is, in fact, not going to WWE. They essentially turned his ass down.
So, like, what happened is Sean Ross Sapp got a call from his sources at WWE, and Fightful, I guess you could say, broke the story. I think because Dave went, because you and I were just going to put this on our Patreon, right?
Yes.
Because our Patreon's like our buddies. So we were going to talk to our
Yeah.
patrons, like, hey, this is what we're hearing. This is probably going to happen. And then the next morning, Dave with the Observer comes out, and there's paragraphs about Punk coming back to WWE. Right, because it had been the scuttlebutt. Like if we hear it, there's Dave definitely knows it if we've heard it. So I'm pretty sure once it hit the Observer, you come, okay, it's time to put this one back. We got to put this genie back in the bottle because it ain't gonna happen. I'm of the mind that was probably news to CM Punk, and I think it's probably news to the rest of the company too, because I don't care what. Like the whole idea is like, well, that's talent just kind of doing their own thing and going into business for themselves. Yeah, because that happens all the time in World Wrestling Entertainment. Talent are known for going into business for themselves and not following the script.
Especially Shinsuke Nakamura on the road to a big event in Chicago. He certainly wouldn't be on his own doing a GTS, right?
Well,
he's certainly not going to do that. Yes,
he's never done
it. It makes no sense for him to do that.
So, I think we're of the same mind of this, right? Something fell through.
I think that I think they got all the way up and it was all agreed upon. They had it figured out. Money, I don't know about. I don't know about any of that stuff, but they all had it figured out. And Vince, who we'll talk about a little bit later, very likely put the kibosh on the whole thing. Said no, not this guy, not
Well,
this guy.
we heard. I don't want to reveal who we heard this from. This different source, who I'll let this person reveal himself at some point. Said the rumor was that Nick Khan said to Punk, "I don't know about you. We love
Yeah.
Adam, and we're gonna get." And we gave him a lot of money, and he's not a draw. You, I'm not sure about. Which I
Right.
could absolutely hear a hardline negotiator like Nick Khan saying those words to a CM Punk. Because is the juice worth the Punk squeeze right now for them? I don't. I mean, after what we saw this week, I don't think so.
They're going to go from number 1 to number 1. Like
Mhm.
what would be the point? Sell a couple extra tickets in Chicago? I honestly
Already
I
sold out.
very much understand why they didn't re-sign Edge. I totally get it.
Mhm.
The guy costs a lot of money and he's not bringing any money in. He might sell you a couple t-shirts, he might help you sell out Toronto, but that's it. And then so the same thing for CM Punk. CM Punk is a bigger draw than Edge. CM Punk is a bigger ratings mover than Edge. I just don't think that you're going to get so much more money than you would have to spend to make a whole thing worth it. I just don't see it, especially considering the guy's history and the fact that they
Yeah.
did fire him before and he got fired from AEW and he got suspended there twice. And the whole it literally just never made any sense to me that the WWE would even think about bringing him back. I understand why they had the conversation. I think you should at least kick the tires on the guy,
Mhm.
see what he's made of, but are you going to risk your locker room? Or are you going to risk all of that? Because when you bring a guy like that in, he's going to be costing a lot of money. You're not going to give him a ton of power to where he's going to have leverage over the company, but you're still going to build a lot of your programs around him. He's going to be a big part of the show.
We talked about this last week. I said there's a lot of guys in the company who don't like him all that much. Cody
Yeah.
Rhodes I went back and listened to Cody Rhodes' last promo from AEW. When I say last promo, his last AEW program, the "What do you want to talk about" promo, which people remember that line, but they kind of forget that he brings up the pipe bomb and says that he did all the stuff that Punk talked about doing in that promo, which is true. And at that point, it's so weird to listen to Cody not be able to control a crowd. So much has changed in the last 2 years, right? Because remember, in early 2022, the AEW fan base had totally turned on Cody Rhodes, right?
Yeah.
Completely, totally turned on the guy. And then to hear him basically say, "You guys are choosing this guy over me and you're fucking stupid," right? And look where we are now. Like,
Yeah.
he was right. I mean, that
Yeah.
guy went to the AEW and was whether you believe he was a cancer or a savior, he was a gigantic divider of that locker room. And we say this as fans of him. You and I both profess that we are big fans of his work, but I cannot tell you that AEW is in a better place because of him at this point.
In fact, I think one could argue that they're in a much worse place since
agree.
Because they peaked so much. And hey guys, if you're in the chat, do me a favor. I forgot to share the show tonight, so if you could I just shared it. So if you guys could tell your friends that you're watching us, and if you can give us a big thumbs up, if you can comment on the video, and make sure that you're a subscriber to the Voices of Wrestling Network, I'd really appreciate it. So I am a big believer that he did way more harm than good, and I understand that they did this tremendous first pay-per-view with All Out a couple years ago. Their pay-per-view numbers after that, their baseline was a lot higher with Punk than it was before he got there, right? Because right now
True.
they're kind of inching closer back to that original baseline of right around 100 to 120, 130,000. But with Punk, it was a bit higher, right? And so I think that All Out did like what 220 something like that, like 250 something like that. So
it was like 220.
Yeah.
All in was about 200 too. Like their baseline is about 140 right now. Prior to Punk, it was about 100.
Mhm.
Right? Like they were averaging about 100,000. So I mean,
Yeah.
they've retained more since bringing him on, right? And that is the only. We'll talk about this later. That is the only metric that AEW has grown over the past 2 years, right? I think that upsetting. I think that the buzz you get from CM Punk is leaned out by the baggage he carries, right? And when I say baggage, I'm not talking about his fans, which can be a bit something. But I mean, like Punk just can't stop being Punk. And if you're WWE, and it's funny, I want you to like really look back on where things were 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago, we had the same situation with SmackDown. Remember? They went for a third hour SmackDown, put it on FS1, third hour SmackDown.
Yep.
I forget. They put it, I think the second hour SmackDown, they put it on FS1 against AEW, and they won. AEW won.
Yeah.
Right. At that stage, we were all like, oh my God, there's something really going on here. They talked about, I found some old tweets of mine at the 2022 Royal Rumble. None of the last like 6 people in the ring were under 40. Right. We were talking about how this company is like, they haven't made any stars. There isn't anything happening there, blah, blah, blah. And in less than 2 years, the script is completely flipped.
Yeah.
And he's a big part of the reasons why on both sides.
Yeah, because if you look at his feud, and we'll stick with AEW. If you look at his feuds there, you know, he had the quick Darby, right, where he beat Darby, and that was the end of that. They never really went back to it. They could have went back to it later, but obviously things.
He spent more time teaming with Darby after that match than feuding with him. They really feuded with him. Yeah, he just kind of called him out. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he had the awesome, fantastic, one of my favorite feuds ever with MJF.
You're forgetting one. He had a mini feud with Eddie.
That's right. They
into Full Gear.
Yeah, but that was like a 2 to 3 week kind of like, hey, we want to get this. Yeah. So they built it up at the last minute typically, but they did. They booked the match, and then they had a hell of a match too.
They did.
And he beat Eddie, and then they go to MJF. He splits with MJF, and then he does the Moxley thing. He has Hangman. He beats up Hangman. Tanks Hangman's career to where Hangman has never been able to recover since then.
Correct.
And then he does the Moxley thing, and then Brawl Out happens, and he comes back, and then who's he feuding with? 43, 44-year-old Samoa Joe, right? I think they were going to eventually get to MJF. I think they did something with Starks. They're eventually going to get to the MJF thing, but they just never really got to it. So really, what did they end up gaining besides some early success and a little bit of notoriety in the beginning of his run there? Not much. Like they're not the better for it.
No, especially because of what happened behind the scenes. Like, talk about Brawl Out all you want, but I mean, like, there's like a legit division. Like, the Bucks and FTR were working together, and they just, it was what it was. They went from like, we work together, okay, it's fine, to like seriously disliking each other at various points, right? Yeah. I mean, like, there's a lot more. Like, remember when this is so funny, guys like Jim Cornette used to make fun of AEW for being like that. Oh, the happiest all friends wrestling, everybody's happy in their locker room. What a bunch of bullshit. And then there's problems, and they're cackling the whole way. Well, which is it, motherfucker? Which is better, when everybody hates each other or when people like each other? Like, I think when
everybody's a professional, right? And that's where we, like, you don't have to like everybody. Everybody has to be professionals, right? And that's where we went off, because one guy, when he's reacting to people being unprofessional, is to get physical, right? Versus handling things in a professional manner, which ended up tanking it. Since his suspension from the year before, like the original suspension, somebody's gonna do a study on this, and it'd be fascinating, like the decline in ticket sales and ratings since that original suspension. I know there's been ebbs and flows, and of course they had the big show in the UK, but domestically it's been terrible, right? Mm-hmm. It's been like year over year has been pretty awful for that company. So if you're WWE and you're taking a look at that, it's like, what the fuck? Why would we do that? We're hot right now. Mm-hmm. Now, if eventually they take a big dip, and they need to take a risk, right, to get money going back up, to get these live events back up, maybe they take a flyer on them. But Joe in the chat, and I'm gonna get you guys in the chat here in a minute. Joe in the chat says Chicago was already sold out. Yeah. Both shows, Survivor Series and SmackDown, I believe, they were already sold out. So that proves right there that WWE, they don't need CM Punk, and honestly, they don't need Edge, and they were smart to turn down Edge, and they're smart to turn down CM Punk.
I agree 100%.
So I hope you brought your A game. A made no rain on the track when we unite and spit. This isn't A game. Better bring your A game.